Like Chopin, Alkan wrote almost exclusively for the piano and for a gargoyle of an instrument, the pédalier, which was a monstrous piano equipped with a pedal board like that of the organ. Alkan's Opus 39 consists of 12 etudes in all the minor keys. They were published in 1857, but were written earlier. As one thumbs through the 271 pages comprising these 12 etudes, one is struck by their Berliosian proportions. The romantic urge to vastness, both in length and resources, as exemplified by Berlioz and culminating in Schoenberg's Gurlieder and Mahler's Symphony of 1,000, finds its pianistic counterpart in these etudes. Numbers 4, 5, 6, and 7 comprise a symphony for piano. Numbers 8, 9, and 10 are an hour-long concerto without orchestra, in which the piano is made to suggest, in a wonderfully realistic way, both the orchestra and the solo instrument. Number 11 is an overture, and the 12th etude is a magnificent set of variations. It is with these variations that I shall initiate you into the alcanistic mysteries. I have chosen to start with this work because it shows so many of Alcan's characteristics: his love of the bizarre, the fantastic, his sense of humor, a rare commodity in the Romantics, who mostly took themselves very seriously. It shows his rhythmical bite and energy. It shows his unique treatment of the piano, his cultivation of unusual sonorities. The piece is called Le Festin d'Ésope, Aesop's Feast, which indicates that each variation represents an animal in Aesop's fables. Alcan doesn't tell us which is which, and everyone is left free to imagine what he will. I myself hear all sorts of creeping, crawling things, aquatic creatures, winged ones, and growling, yapping beasties. The very beginning of the piece, the statement of the theme, which is to be varied, is likely to be a stumbling block to those who may be looking for something in Alcan other than Alcan. As soon as I play the theme, some of you will say, "That sounds like something else." A charming little theme, perfect for variations. Does it sound a little like Paganini's 24th Caprice? Alcan's theme sounds even more like other things. It sounds above all Jewish. Alcan was a Jew. It is possible that the theme is of Hasidic origin. Listen to this.
Chodź der Seide mit der Babbe seinen kurz und klein, nur der Seide mit der Babbe seinen Molechein. Mit den spitzigen Bergerle, mit den Goiderl sie, 80 und 70 sie.
That was a Jewish folk song. What about this? That was Hatikva, the Israeli national anthem. What about this? That was Smetana's Moldau, which certainly has nothing to do with Israel. But doesn't the Moldau remind you of this? That was from one of the variations in the work we are now considering. Perhaps you begin to see the difficulty of tune tracing and the futility of it as far as proving originality or lack of it. The very first variations of Le Festin d'Ésope show some characteristic aspects of Alcan's style, so let us examine them rather closely. Here is the first variation. Observed that the theme is transferred to the left hand. You will remember that the theme proper ends like this. In the first variation, the right hand takes up that fragment and repeats it on various degrees of the scale above the theme. The resulting harmony is very biting and sarcastic, and must have set people's teeth on edge when the piece first appeared. Listen to this measure, played slowly. Let me explain the principle of this, because Alcan makes use of this procedure time and time again in creating his piquant harmonic effects. I'll play the top and bottom voices alone. Notice how they move independently of one another and finally come to a point of repose. The harmonic implications are clarified if we add a few notes in the middle, like this. Alcan wants to be sure, however, that you hear every mordant discord on the way to the final point of rest. So he repeats this inner explanatory harmony with each of the soprano and bass notes, rather than playing them once and holding them until they resolve on the last chord, as I have just done. This is the way Alcan writes the passage. The same sort of thing happens throughout this variation. The independence of moving voices, which is so characteristic of Alcan, is something that was done in much earlier music or much later music, but was not at all common in Alcan's day, at least not in the way Alcan did it. It is not probable that Alcan was familiar with early English music, but one finds in that music procedures reminding one of Alcan. I'll give you an example later in discussing another Alcan piece. A pedal point means any note or notes held for some time while music goes on above or below, or above and below. Alcan makes use of pedal points often and in quite his own way. Variation 3 is built entirely on a pedal point of 2 interior notes. But instead of simply holding these notes down throughout the variation, Alcan repeats them with each note of the melody and bass, thus emphasizing all sorts of hair-raising discords. I'll play the variation for you slowly. In variation 4, we come to another factor of Alcan's style, and that is his spacing on the piano. Every great piano composer produces his own sound, and Alcan is no exception. He is fond of all sorts of experiments in sonorities, often writing for the hands very far apart from one another to give a bleak, hollow sound. Notice the wonderful effect of the empty fourths and fifths in the second half of variation 4. Variation 10 starts like a music box or musette. Brahms has a similar effect in his Handel variations, written at least 5 years later. Variation 21 is a hunting scene. Perhaps this reminds you of the hunting horns in Brahms' Handel variations. What happens in Alcan's next variation certainly never happens in Brahms, however. The realistic yapping of the hounds is added. Notice how, while the hunt music continues at its jaunty pace, the dogs leap and gambol faster and faster, so that actually one has 2 simultaneous tempi, one steady one and one accelerating, producing cross rhythms unheard of at that time. coda of Le Festin d'Aesop, there occurs another example of Alcan's teeth-rattling treatment of dissonance. Part of the effectiveness of this passage is caused by the repetition of the inner harmony notes with each melody and bass note, as I pointed out in variations 1 and 3. There are 25 variations in all, but don't be alarmed. It takes more time to talk about them than it does to play them. Here is Le Festin d'Aesop, Aesop's Feast, by Charles Valentin Alkan.